Hey everybody, looking at this Jx85. Had a lady call me asking if I might take a look at her lawnmower. She said she spent about 45 minutes trying to pull and pull and pull and pull it to get it started. Eventually it pulled and started. She did her front yard, shut it down, took it around back, attempted to do the backyard, and you know what, she didn't even attempt to try to pull start it. She didn't want to spend another half hour, 45 minutes trying to pull this thing to get it started, so she wants it to start easier. Now I get this thing over here yesterday and I pull started it and it immediately started. And I just let it run for like 10 seconds and I'm thinking, okay, no big deal. So I come out this morning and I start it and there's a little hesitation. Let me show you what I'm saying here. So this is an interesting, there's no primer. It has mechanical choke. And what we do here is, this older thing here has got a lot of controls on it. So it's got a blade clutch on it, which not a lot of lawnmowers do these days. So to get it going here, here's the, for the engine, here's off. It's got the little off symbol there. And here's the choke. So we're going to put it in choke. That's all you got to do. You don't have to hold the handle or anything like that. And it's safe to come over here to the side then and start this thing up because the blades aren't going to be turning. Now, what I did notice this morning when I started it up, there seems to be some hesitation, and let me show you what it sounds like. And if you think you know what it is, we're going to go ahead and get into this and fix it here in a little bit. But if you think you can guess what the fix for this is, go ahead and pause the video and put a comment in there what you think it is. So let me start it up, let you hear what it sounds like. So that's with the choke still on. Now here I'm taking the choke off. Okay, so I went from full choke to just rapid speed, full throttle, backing off the choke. And so it's got that hesitation in there. It's kind of, I don't know if you noticed the surge. So it's surging. So what say you? What do you think the fix is for this thing? I will tell you my thoughts are, I'm going to go ahead and take that carburetor off and see what it looks like down in there. But first, what I do is really clean it up, and I like getting all the gunk off. It looks like there might be some oily residue. This stuff's the worst. So I just put a little dishwashing liquid, some Dawn or whatever. First I fill a bottle like this up with water first. Fill it up with water first, maybe to about there, and then fill up the rest of the way with dishwashing liquid. You don't need a whole lot. Stuff works great. It cuts grease. So before I work on something, I go ahead and spray the kind of dirty parts down real good. Get them soaked up. And it's nice to do this if you're able to run the machine for a few minutes. Warms it up, and that kind of gets the dirty, greasy stuff warm. And that I think the dishwashing liquid penetrates that better when the dirt's warm. But anyway, so I'll go ahead and blast that off. And then my thoughts on how to approach this are on most things that have this type of situation where they're surging. I suspect carburetor and some fuel restrictions somewhere. But what really restricts gas mostly is water. So I will go ahead and drain whatever fuel is in the tank out into a glass jar. I get it all out, and then I'll take a look at it and see if there's any evidence of water in there. The whole bottom of it might be filled with water in the glass jar. Who knows? So that's going to be the first thing I do, is eliminate that possibility that there's water in the system, because water's so heavy. It gets down in the bottom of the float bowl of the carburetor down there, and it blocks the fuel. That the upsuck in the carburetor going up through the emulsion tube and then eventually into the engine, it's not strong enough to pull that heavy water up through the tube. So once water gets down in that bowl, it's just a blocker. It just completely blocks the gas off from entering through the main jet, and or it lets it through a little bit, whatever. But any water is going to cause that. Usually it won't run at all. So anyway, draining the fuel, and then you're going to remove the carburetor, and then take a look at the main jet, any debris that might be in there. There's a bunch of holes usually in the emulsion tube in the middle of the carburetor. We're going to try to pull that out and punch out all the little holes that are in the emulsion tube, and I'll show you. But that would be my approach on this. So first is to drain the gas out of it, look for water, make sure the gas tank is clean and that that's not an issue, water contamination. And then just pulling the carburetor completely off, disassembling it, and getting all the little orifices as clear as can be. So I'll show you how to do that here in a little bit. Right now, I've let this soapy water penetrate the greasy nastiness for a little bit, and I'm going to go on out and hose it off, get that stuff off before I start disassembling it. And what I do when I'm spraying these mowers off and stuff, I try to steer clear of wherever the air intake cleaner, wherever the air cleaner is, which is usually before it goes to the carburetor there. So the air cleaner is kind of on top right here. I try not to blast water directly into that, because there's usually there's going to be an air filter element in there that you don't want to get all sopping wet, because you'll like ruin it basically, or it'll take weeks to completely dry that thing. Might as well go out and buy another one. So I don't spray directly into that. Sometimes I'll take the air cleaner completely off, and I'll shove a rag down into the carburetor inlet hole so water doesn't get down in there, and I don't spray directly in there. But yeah, you just don't want to get water down in the engine or on the air filter element. So I'm going to go hose this off, come back, and we'll get to checking out what's wrong with this thing. Alright, so we're back at it. Got it cleaned off a little bit. Tools that I'm going to use to get to most of this stuff are just a tube here, kind of an extender tube, a glass jar, this ratchet to kind of bust this one loose if I need to, and here's a 10 mil. Got two screws here that are 10 mil. And by the way, this is an FC150V Kawasaki motor. This is a commercial lawnmower. Okay, there's my 10 mil. I got some needle nose, and then I got this to plug up the fuel line. Once I'm done draining a little bit, the tank is completely full, so I'm probably not going to drain the whole thing. So what I'll do is take this off right here, starting with this line. And what I try to do on these fuel lines here, I try not to pinch them, like squeeze them and pinch them off, especially with a little bit older mowers. I just want to slide them off as easy as possible. Sometimes I'll even put a little WD-40, PB Blaster, whatever on there, and it makes them slip off easier. But I just try not to pinch it at all if I can avoid it. Otherwise you'll be installing new fuel line on this thing pretty much certainly, especially if the mower's a little older. So okay, that's coming off pretty good. And I got this extender tube. Okay, the gas is coming out, so I'm kind of missing any water that might be in there by not catching it immediately. So I'm going to let that drain out a little bit. Let it kind of run downhill for a while. Just let it run for about 30 seconds to get whatever water is in the lower part of the system out. And I'm not seeing any evidence of water that'll usually It'll usually be pretty evident by drops. That are formed up around the gas. Okay, so it's leaking a little bit there. So what I'll do here is I got enough gas out of there right now. I'm gonna go ahead and lift it off and I'll plug it up. I don't like clamping these fuel lines if I don't have to. Like I said, I don't want to pinch it, but what I will do is take this out and plug it up with this punch, this center punch. I like using this. It blocks the line off. It doesn't flare it out too much. And the thing I really like about it is it doesn't crush it. So it doesn't crush the line. That's my main concern for older mowers. And I'm gonna here in a little bit look up and see how old this thing is, you know, because it's an older mower, but I'm curious how old these Jx85s are. All right, so I'm getting to the carburetor. It looks like we're going to be able to pull that carburetor off, down and off pretty easily. We don't really need to take any of the air filter stuff off. And since it's kind of surging, it sounds like a fuel flow problem, being too lean of a mixture. You know, it's getting gas and it's not getting gas. It's getting enough gas and it's not getting enough gas. So air cleaner, like a missing air cleaner, sometimes that's enough to restrict that airflow, causing a more rich mixture to get in there, so you're not having those surges. But this air cleaner I just looked at a little while ago looks really good, and it's real clean inside of here. This lady maintains her mower very well, you can tell. Get this. So it's just like a wing nut bolt and a washer holding that on there. And here's the air cleaner. It looks real clean, looks pretty new, real new, looks brand new. She must have called around trying to get this thing fixed, but the turnaround in the summertime, sometimes it takes these guys months to get your machine back. So I guess I'm the quick option for her. That looks real clean right there. So I think we can get to all of this without having to take this shroud cover off and stuff like that. And so it should be pretty easy that way. We'll kind of get this sort of popped back together real quick, and I'm going to get on this carburetor removal. So there is still a little gas in the carburetor. We didn't drain the bowl, but I want to kind of keep whatever's in the bowl in there to see what kind of water contamination, if any, we got, because that, like I said, it will settle in the bottom of the float bowl of the carburetor. So we're going to take a look at that. I might have to actually take the shroud off to get the connections that go to the carburetor off of there properly. We'll see what it takes. We'll go ahead and get this off. Okay. Okay, that's not loose enough yet. Okay, that one is. This isn't quite long enough. There it is. Just gotta get it cracked with the wrench first. My Ryobi impact got a bit snapped off into it. Okay, let's see. We're gonna take these bolts out. And when we're doing this, I just like setting my stuff right down here on the engine deck for temporary storage. Okay, now this seems to be flopping off pretty easy, coming off of there. We want to pay attention to the stack and how the gaskets are on here. So we got this one and it ain't going nowhere. It's kind of stuck there. I leave it. Try not to mess with it. Okay, so we have what looks like only 2 connections. Okay, this comes off real easy. This little intake manifold. Okay, so we got 3 things. We got the choke. Here's the choke lever and the choke butterfly valve, and then here's for the throttle going to the governor arm, and then you got this little smaller wire here. Okay, so we're going to try to take this off without breaking anything. Okay, sometimes these chokes can come off pretty easy. Let's see if we can do that without having to do much disassembly. But it looks like this might be a challenge to get off of here. Yeah, because this, we're going to have to rotate this thing and pull it out like that. And with this choke, it may be a little easier to get off. Let's see. Might have to take this filter off to be able to rotate this thing as necessary to pull it off. Let me go ahead and grab and take that filter off. I'm going to lean it up like this so we can let that oil drain out of that filter as much as possible before we take it off, because it looks like I'm not going to be able to take this off with this being in the way. Now first, let's take a look at this gas. There's like no evidence. This is clear as could be. This gas is clean. It's going to go right back in the tank when I'm done. So that pretty much eliminates water contamination. So let me go ahead and lean this up. All right, taking this oil filter off, I had to use my spanner wrench on this thing, and it's absolutely crushing it. It was on there so tight, there's no need. I mean, whoever put this on there just effing gorilla gripped it. So now basically I almost ruined it. As long as I didn't like puncture it, should be good. I'm gonna run it and make sure it's not punctured, and then hope for the best. So I might take this off. I got it leaned up. I'm just gonna have to go with it and try to not get oil completely. Yeah, so this is just gonna be a nasty mess just to clean this carburetor off. All right, so we'll take this off, try to lose. Okay, that worked out pretty good. Minimal mess. Oh my God, they had that on there so tight. Probably end up getting her a new filter on there. Hers is just a little crushed, but I'm sure it'll still be very functional. All right, now can we get this off? Let's see, what's it gonna take to take this off, because this choke arm just really is twisted. How do we need to get to this? I think it comes over this way, and this gas just wants to come right out of the carburetor. Might not be able to keep it in there, or having to rotate it around to get these linkages off. I'm doing whatever I can to try and take this off without removing all the other crap around it. So this looks like it has to be rotated this way to be able to pull the choke lever out. Okay, so just gently, okay, getting that choke out of there. Now this throttle should be pretty easy like that. Okay, good. And this small one goes in the same hole, so we'll just leave that together there, and that's it. Now we'll go ahead and take this apart, see what it looks like inside. Right now I'm gonna open that up and drain that out into my glass jar to see if that there has any just traces of water. We'll be able to see that in the bottom of the jar after I drain it out. Okay, so get this over here and just open this up. Yep, just letting it drain. So it's got a little drain hole just to the side. It's a pretty cool setup. So get all this gas out, let it drain. And any water that's going to be in there will drop to the bottom of that glass jar. Whatever water was in there should be in there by now. Now this thing's ready to be rebuilt. We'll go ahead and put that on the bench and take a closer look. Let's see there's any water in there. I'm not seeing a drop, like nothing. That looks great. So water is not an issue. We're just going to take a look at the jets, emulsion tube, and get everything back together. I'll probably go ahead and take and spray this down too, take it outside, and hose it down just for a second, kind of get this stuff here, just to get the dirt off of it. And I'll spray it down real good. Try not to lose this gasket here. I reuse gaskets, no problem if they're in good shape. Why not? Okay, just let that soak for a few minutes, then take it out for a spray, the garden hose. Alright, so we got this carburetor off here. Looking pretty good and clean. Now, pretty clean. Okay, you got this nice and clean, and really all we got to do to take this thing apart is we got a 10 mil right here, and we got a flathead screwdriver right there to take off this little piece, and then we'll get into the emulsion tube. Now, if you look down in here, you'll see a little tube sticking up just past the butterfly valve. There it is. You can kind of see it when I move the valve. There's that little tube down in there. We're going to try to push that down through the bottom of the carburetor, take it out, and clean out all the little holes. So let's take this 10 mil, let's get the float bowl off of here. Oh my god, yeah, this thing is just ridiculous. Okay, so tight. All right, so this may not have been serviced before, so we'll take this off. Okay, one thing I did not mention as far as like a lack of fuel flow, it could be in the carburetor here, but a very simple thing to try when it's kind of surging is to loosen up the gas tank, because sometimes the tanks will not vent. They're supposed to be vented, and with the gas cap there may be a situation where it's plugging up and it's not allowing the vent situation to happen, so it's not venting properly, and if it's not, it's going to restrict fuel flow to the carburetor, and that could cause a surging condition. But I jumped right to carburetor issue. I shouldn't have. I should have loosened up the cap first, but we're going to put this back together, try to run it, and see what's going on. All right, so here, there's just a couple little pieces of debris down in there. Nothing to really worry about right now as far as that goes. However, that is something. Those little pieces of debris might be up in here and causing some kind of blockage. So what we're going to do is take this. We got the float bowl off. Keep to the side. You're going to have a lot of little parts and pieces. So usually we just take this little pin out of the float and get it apart. Pretty easy. Usually these slide out. Sometimes they take a little convincing. This one's stuck in there pretty good. This thing's pretty tight, so let's see if we can get it out. And of course, this doesn't want to come out real easy. Sometimes you can just tap on it a little bit, and most come out very easy. This one is not, so we'll have to work on that a little bit to get it out. And I like using diagonal cutters sometimes and kind of prying, grabbing it, and kind of starting to pry it out. Okay, that made it come a little easier. All right, so it's coming out. We'll take this out, put it to the side. Don't lose your little parts. Gonna have the float and then the needle. There's the needle right there. It just kind of dangles there. There's a little wire holding it on to the tang, so we'll put that to the side. Taking a look at things, we have another flathead down in here. This is the main jet, and what's on the other side of that is that tube that I showed you earlier back there. that's underneath the main jet. That's the emulsion tube. We'll take that out too. While we're at it, we'll go ahead and take this little jet thing out, and we're just going to blow this out with compressed air eventually. That's all we're going to do. Maybe spray a little air and then carburetor cleaner. Going to make sure all those little holes, any holes, are clear. And that's really it, except for this. Now with this, if you're going to dig into this thing this far and take out this emulsion tube, be very careful, because this is a quick way to ruin your carburetor if you don't have just the right flathead to fit right down into that. You really don't want it touching the sides at all, otherwise you're going to screw up the threads. As you're pulling this out, you're going to booger up the threads. So this one seems to be going down in there pretty good. Actually, I want to go for one a little bit smaller, narrower, so it fits down in there a little better. Let me find a better flathead screwdriver. So let's see, for instance, like this one fits in there just perfectly. It's just pretty even on the ends. You know, it fits right in there. That's what you kind of want to have, right? And this seems to fit the main jet flathead portion pretty good. So I just lay it in there and see if it'll just plop down in that slot easy enough. If I feel that it's grabbing at the threads on the side, I won't continue. And this, you know, the further down you go, it seems like the more chance you have of boogering up the thread. So I got that flat. I got the slot with the screwdriver. I'm going to put a little downward pressure. Like I said, if it feels like you're hitting the sides and grabbing threads, you don't want to continue. But this one feels pretty good. Actually, I'm going to go with kind of a smaller width of screwdriver, just a little bit smaller. I might even grind down a little bit of this actually before I stick it in there and commit to pushing it in. So I got another screwdriver here that I think, okay, it's a little narrower, flathead. Okay, hopefully it's got enough bite into the slot to get her started. So I'm pushing really hard down in there. I'm hoping to get this thing going. Okay, so that loosened up real good and easy, and it feels like it's going to come out easy. So if you use, like I said, a flathead screwdriver that's too wide, you're going to screw up those fine threads on the carburetor, and then your carburetor's pretty much toast after that. You're gonna have to buy a new carburetor. So we want this to come out nice and easy, like it does, like it is right now. This is the main jet. Okay, that'll come out first, this little thing. Okay, and we're gonna blow through that hole, and then we're gonna look through it and see if we can see light on the back side. Get some light on the back side of this. See if we can see through it. That's looking pretty clean to me. But still, we'll use a little wire brush, pipe cleaner, and clean that out. So I'll set this to the side for now. Now, with this emulsion tube, sometimes if you're lucky, it'll fall right out. If it doesn't fall right out, just grab it firmly and lightly give it a few taps, and there it came out. See that? Just plop right out right there. Now you got all these holes right here in this emulsion tube. We're going to take a look, kind of blow on this, make sure that all those holes are clear. If they're not, this could be an issue with the surging problem if all of these holes are not very clean and clear. Okay, there's a little gunk debris up on this, on top of it. So We want to be looking at all these holes right here and making sure they're clear. See if we can get some light behind that. I'm not seeing the light come through that real easy. Actually, they look real clear. So anyway, I'm going to poke them out to make sure. So I got an old throttle cable. I'm going to cut off a little strand of it. And I'll start poking. Start poking through these holes. Making sure everything is clear. I don't see it poking out any debris yet. This one might have had some garbage in it. And then once I get all these holes poked through, I'll give it a quick blast of air. Too much coffee this morning. Alright, shaky. Okay, so we got through that. Got any more up here? Nope. Actually, this appeared to be pretty clear. Get these up here. Make sure they're all nice and clear. We might have had a little bit of gunk, but not much. Then we're going to take and blow it out. Okay, then we're going to go after the main jet here. We're going to find a small pipe cleaner and try to get it down through the main jet. These are usually pretty small. So I'm going to have to go with the absolute smallest diameter of pipe cleaner here to get through here. Sometimes even this is not small enough. Yeah, so it's real tiny. I think that's the smallest one we got. But even that, no, here's the smallest one. So will that go through? That probably ain't going to go through either. So, okay. So we can find our wire. Where'd our little wire go? Here it is. We can just get this through here and poke through it a bunch of times. And we got these bends in here. I like that, having the little kinks in the wire and just pulling it through multiple times like that. And those kinks will help clear out any gunk that might be building up in the jet. Pull those kinks through real hard like that. Kink it up a little bit more. Jamming it through there. Actually, this carburetor looks very clean, so I'm hoping that what we're doing is going to help the situation. I don't really see that it is, but I lost my wire. So that should be nice and clean. Going to blow it out just for a second. Try not to lose it when you do it. Hold on tight. Blow through the middle. Okay. I'm looking it up. I'm putting it up to a light and I'm looking through it. It looks nice and clean. So we got the jet cleaned out here. We got the emulsion tube and all the little pinholes. And then we're going to clean this one out too. I just dropped my wire. It will be impossible to find on the garage floor until like next week I might see it. So let me grab another piece of wire. So I'm grabbing this. I don't think it's supposed to come down through the middle here. Like there's no way to get through there on the top. It doesn't go anywhere, I'm pretty sure. but you definitely want to make sure that these side holes are clear. These right here. Got 1, 2, 3. Okay, and hold on to it real tight. Give it a blow. And now we're about ready to put stuff back together. But first, we'll go ahead and blow out this port right here. And with the fuel inlet on the carburetor, I like blowing through it that way and not this way. Not like the direction that the fuel flows, but opposite. Because a lot of times you will blow the rubber seat out of it, and that's not good. So I blow that way. All right. And so that's good. We're going to get things back together. Just going to put it together in the reverse order that we took it apart. All right. Now I was going to say, when I'm putting this back together, I put this little drain screw to the front of the engine opposite the inlet. First I got to get the emulsion tube in there. And then the main jet. Okay, now trying to remember the reverse order of how this stuff came off. So the little one went in the throttle hole right here, and then the big throttle line. Okay, they didn't want to stay, so I'm gonna kind of cinch that loop down on the spring piece. Okay, and get the throttle linkage in there. And now to carefully see how that choke linkage is kind of bent a little bit, so we want to follow that bend in the choke lever and get it. I'm doing it this way because that's is the order that I took it apart. There we go. Okay, that was easy. All right, now gonna line things up. Okay, that almost feels like it's binding. Oh, because I got it. Do I have it freaking backwards? Yeah, I do. No, I don't. Okay, so that's the way it goes on there. And then we're gonna get the manifold on here lined up. Then we're gonna get the bolts. Okay, make sure that that is all lined up good. It just feels like it's binding a little bit, but it should be good. Okay, get that bolt through there. All the gasket stuff is in place the way it was. Okay, we got our bolts. This one's pretty easy so far. Unlike the Honda, it's just got a stack of gaskets, spacers, and all that stuff. This Kawasaki makes it pretty easy. Okay. No need to Gorilla Grip this stuff. And we'll get this fuel line back on here eventually. The oil filter. Okay. Get that back on here. Trying not to make a mess again. And just get that hand tight and then some a little bit. The way they had it on there was so friggin' tight, it was ridiculous. Okay, so that's better. All right, and wipe that down and get our fuel line connected back up there. This might drain out a little bit on us. And we're about ready to fire it back up. Okay. Whoa, oh yeah. Gosh, I forgot to get that. Okay, so we're gonna rotate this bowl around a little bit. I didn't have that bowl adjustment nut on there properly. So I'm just gonna loosen up this bowl here a little bit with that 10. Okay. Okay, that's tightening. Just gonna loosen this up just so we can rotate this bowl around and shut this drain screw. I forgot to loosen up the drain screw. Okay. Loosen up, loosen it up. We'll loosen some more. Okay. I'm gonna rotate this around too. We got it like that. There we go. That'll make things easier. Get it kind of tight and then tighten it up some more. And we're going to go ahead and tighten up this drain screw. There we go. All right. Fuel line back on. Just about ready to fire it back up. Okay, nice and clean. I'm gonna try to maybe neutralize some of this gas on here. All right, so preserver paint. Okay, we're about ready to fire it up again. Okay, we got the fuel from the jug, from the glass jar back in there. Rebuilt the carburetor, cleaned it out real good. Gonna try to fire this thing up. Let's see. Got the cap on there good and tight. Gas cap, air filter. Go ahead and get this on there real good. Because that air filter has a lot to do with fuel flow too. Sometimes, you know, if it's not tight and everything's tight with the air filter and the cover, it'll be sucking more air than it's supposed to. So anyway, let's go ahead and put this to choke, full choke. Step here. Okay, I'm not hearing any surging. I think we took care of it, whatever it was. Yep. Gonna go ahead and engage the blades. right, John Deere Jx85.